Most of us assume kissing is an ancient, hardwired biological instinct, almost like breathing or blinking. But the science suggests something much more unsettling. Human kissing as we know it is a relatively recent social invention. If you look at the animal kingdom, you see plenty of nose rubbing and social grooming, but you don't see anything that looks like a romantic lip lock. Chimpanzees and bonobos do share food mouth to mouth, but it looks more like a transaction than a date. For a long time, historians believed the earliest evidence of human kissing popped up in Vedic Sanskrit texts from India around 1500 BCE. They described the act as the inhalation of a soul. But new evidence from ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq and Syria is pushing that timeline back by a full millennium. We have now discovered clay tablets from 2500 BCE that explicitly mention people kissing. These Sumerian and Akkadian texts describe kissing as a part of sexual intimacy, specifically between lovers. This means that at least 4,500 years ago, our ancestors were already locking lips. But here is the kicker. That does not mean kissing was a universal human behavior. In fact, for most of human history, it was likely quite rare. To understand why, we have to look at biology. The human mouth is a chaotic landscape of bacteria. Every time you kiss someone, you are swapping roughly 80 million bacteria. Usually, that is fine. But for our ancestors, the risk of disease was high. Researchers like Troels Pankarbul have argued that certain diseases, like herpes simplex virus 1, actually spread through this exact behavior. As civilizations grew and population density increased in the Bronze Age, these pathogens found a perfect highway. So why would humans continue the practice if it invited sickness? The answer lies in the evolution of social bonding. Some evolutionary biologists argue that kissing evolved as a way to assess a potential mate. Our mouths contain a massive amount of chemical information. By getting close, you are sniffing out a partner's health, their immune system compatibility, and their genetic fitness through pheromones. It is an unconscious biological background check. But if it were strictly for biology, we would expect to see it everywhere. Yet, we don't. A 2015 study published in American Anthropologist analyzed 168 different cultures from around the world. They found that only 46% of them included romantic kissing. In many hunter-gatherer societies, the concept is entirely absent or even seen as unhygienic. If your entire culture is based on tight-knit community living where food is shared and hygiene is a group effort, sticking your face into someone else's mouth might seem like an evolutionary misstep. So, how did it become the global standard? We have the rise of empires to thank for that. As ancient civilizations expanded, their cultural practices, from language to religion to dining, spread with them. Kissing became a shorthand for social status, a way to signal loyalty, or a prerequisite for courtship in the elite circles of the Near East and the Mediterranean. By the time of the Roman Empire, kissing had been categorized into three distinct levels: the osculum for friends, the basium for acquaintances, and the civolium for lovers. The spread of Christianity in Europe further standardized the practice, incorporating the holy kiss into religious liturgy. By the medieval period, the kiss of peace was a standard feature of church services. Kissing was no longer just about romance or biological assessment, it had become a performative social tool. It was used to seal legal contracts, to greet nobility, and to display submission. It is worth noting that while all of this was happening, vast swaths of the human population in sub-Saharan Africa, South America, and parts of Asia were not kissing at all. They had their own ways of expressing intimacy: nose rubbing, face sniffing, or light slapping. The global homogenization of the romantic kiss is actually a very modern phenomenon. It wasn't until the 20th century, with the explosion of Hollywood cinema and global media, that the Western style of kissing became the gold standard for romance. Movies sold the idea that a kiss was the ultimate climax of a relationship, the happily ever after moment that defined true love. Suddenly, cultures that had never practiced it were suddenly seeing it as the peak of human affection. When we look back at the 4,500-year history of the kiss, we realize we are looking at the history of human connection itself. It is a biological impulse wrapped in a cultural costume. We start with the need to assess a mate or share food, and we end with a complex, symbolic act that changes based on where you were born and what year it is. The next time you see a couple kissing on a park bench, you aren't just seeing a romantic gesture. You are seeing the collision of ancient Mesopotamian social habits, thousands of years of evolving disease pressures, and a heavy dose of 20th century media propaganda. So, if kissing isn't a hardwired human instinct, what does that say about us? It suggests that we are far more flexible than we think. We take simple physical sensations and build massive, meaningful architectures around them. We don't just exist, we narrate our existence through gestures. If we changed the way we express love 4,500 years ago, what else are we doing today that we assume is natural but is actually just a habit we picked up along the way? Everything from the way we greet each other to the way we define marriage is a moving target. Maybe the reason we kiss isn't because it's written in our DNA. Maybe we kiss because we are constantly looking for ways to bridge the gap between two separate lives. We invented the act to solve a problem. The problem of how to get closer to someone else, and we stuck with it because it worked. Human history is a collection of these small, invented rituals. We are the architects of our own intimacy. And as long as we keep needing to connect, we will keep inventing new ways to say, I am here with you, even if that means doing something as strange as touching mouths. Is there anything else in your life you do every day, believing it's just how humans are, when really, you're just part of a long, unfolding experiment? Perhaps the most human thing about us isn't the kiss itself, but our desperate, beautiful need to create meaning out of thin air.